It's This Week in X for Wolverine number 14, where Wolverine picks up the trail from one of the hanging plot threads from the Hellfire Gala and sails the high seas to arrive in, again, Madripoor. More on that in just a moment on This Week in X. Wolverine number 14 shows us what direction this title is going in after the Hellfire Gala. And we're going to have a lot to say about that. We're going to give you our reactions, discuss the plot a little bit. We're going to spoil this. We're definitely going to talk about things that happen in the Hellfire Gala. That's just the way that this is going to go. For Wolverine number 14, to get started, let's start with reactions. Starting with Tyler.
You know, whenever Kubert comes back to the art, I kind of like the issue better. Even though this one actually has a lot more meat on, in the issue compared to something, some other things before. I feel like this should actually be right after X of Swords because, of who they introduce here, but kind of understand why it's not here. I mean, as far as Wolverine comics go, I think this is one of the better issues.
All right.
Solid recommendation, Tyler.
For a Wolverine comic, it's good.
Yeah, for Wolverine comics.
For you, huh?
It's okay. Whatever, guys. Like, sure, why not? It's here. It exists. We read it. I read it. Whatever. Anyway, Peter, what did you think?
It made me think of one of the Wolverine video games from the 90s where it was all Wolverine, but you could summon in specific people to help you. And maybe one was Jean Grey and she froze everybody or something and Jubilee would do fireworks. To me, that is a good Wolverine issue. He's got to fight some stuff. He's got to use some unique Wolverine connection. And there's got to be one satisfying ex guest star, maybe, who kind of drops in and kind of puts him in his place a little bit. You know what? This ticked the boxes, y'all. The only complaint I have is Madripoor again, really.
Okay, so here's the thing. I am from Dhaka, Bangladesh. It doesn't get any more Madripoor than that. I don't know. It's the places of that is kind of weird. But the thing is, even then, it was okay to live there. It's not I don't understand what is this place where it's if you sleep, if you go to a restaurant or a hotel, they will kill you in there. What is this place? How are these people surviving? Aren't they only doing this to white people? So that's why they just keep saying these things. What is this place? I just don't I don't understand it. I don't like it. And why UN cares for this place? I don't know. What is this?
I mean, look, it made sense in terms of the plot, and we'll get into it because it did be, the ship it did in so much as it's kind of now, it's weird. I kept thinking this was Jerry Duggan writing because it's almost, it turned into a Marauders issue, kind of. It feels much less a person. Usually this feels like an extension of X-Force, but this felt more like an extension of Marauders, although it had X-Force elements. So it's kind of would it have been more satisfying to me if you tracked the boat somewhere else and got this answer out of somebody at the docks using Emma and then tracked him down? I have to say yes, because I don't know that there was anything special about this being in Madripoor. The thing that annoys me about Madripoor is when it's just every criminal thing has to happen in Madripoor. It's just how every villain plot has to happen at a villain auction. It's is anybody paying attention to how there's 8 comics that are using the same plot? You go past synchronicity, which is a good thing, to just being nobody has any ideas. And so I just don't know that we got anything special from this being in Madripoor, as opposed to him just tracking this guy separately, which would have made the world feel a little bit bigger, which seems to be Percy's MO. Let's make there's Terra Verde, there's Dracula, there's Russians. It just felt like it was a missed opportunity to make the world feel a little bit bigger. That said, as I said, it ticked all the Wolverine boxes, and it kind of made me interested, in terms of wondering what's going to happen next. I think I like this comic the best this week.
Whoa.
Wow. We're dealing with a Peter variant, everyone. The other one just was killed.
Where's the other one? Where's the true?
Yeah, what did you do?
Well, because Sword doesn't feel like the X-Men story primarily. I'm interested in viewing and whatever, but it's something else. And Cable ended. So here's the story that it's going somewhere. I'm real curious about the Shi'ar diamonds. I'm real curious about more Arakans on Earth. I'm real curious. So, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, let me center here. Christian was on the Marauder. We know it got stolen during the Hellfire Gala. Christian is thrown overboard, the ship is wrecked, and the Shi'ar crystals are gone. So there's several mysteries stacked on top of each other. Who threw Christian overboard? Is that the person who stole the Shi'ar crystals? And so on. And so Wolverine basically just keeps pulling on this thread with a little bit of the help of Emma. And he finds out at least the last person in that stack is this Arakan pirate who has this like very silly roach bumblebee mask because something ate his nose. And it turns out the thing that ate his nose or cut off his nose is Solemn. So now we're pulling in that Solemn plot from X of Swords too. That's the issue. There's really, is there anything to talk about that?
Well, I mean, the Araki has alien blood.
Yeah.
And then the thing is that Arakans need pirates. They're all pirates. They're all insane. Like, how do you become an Araki pirate? Like, people with Araki would be like, yeah, that's a pirate right there. They're all insane.
Does that just mean you were in that one mutant's bloodstream this whole time, surfing the oceans of their bodily fluids? Like, what was there what? I'm sorry, I can't let it go. Okay, but the actually most interesting thing in this issue, other than it being very pleasant and Andy Kuber's art, also, it must be said, Frank Martin's colors. Right, it's Frank Martin, or is it Lar Martin? Yeah. It's Frank Martin. He just has it just immediately puts me in like this is Wolverine. Just like the way he doesn't make it really shiny, it's a little bit flat. There's a little bit of a white highlight on things. Sometimes it just takes me to Wolverine, please. But Tyler, the reason I wanted to talk about this issue is because Sage goes full on Tyler for a whole page of Sage's receipts. Who asked for the diamonds? Who wanted the diamonds? What are the Russians up to with the Cerebro sword? Who turned off the telephonic feed? Why is the Arakan pirate involved? So, Tyler, what are your thoughts on some of these Sage receipts? Did she count them all? And what do you think some of these things will result in?
I mean, obviously, having them here means that these are all Percy's, probably Percy's and Dugan's threats that they are going to explore further in either Marauders, X-Force, or here in Wolverine. I mean, I'm all for it. Like, I'm all for the feeling of like there's forward momentum, that the story is going somewhere. Unlike the last story where we were not going really anywhere with the vampires until right at the end where they went to the other world, and so I mean, I like it. I mean, I enjoy things like that. And these are things that I think will come into play really soon, which is why I think it's placed here just to remind readers that hey, we still have a couple of things here that were left hanging and never resolved. So we are headed towards somewhere.
Now I kind of like. Now I kind of like this issue then.
Yeah.
Because you changed my mind.
Well, there's also one thing here is that there's one thing in the sense that is a negative for me, is in that this sort of replicates the plot of the first Maverick issue, because you were promised Maverick and you only saw Maverick right at the end.
Oh yes,
one panel.
That's why I'm just so like I was like.
And then you were like promised Solemn from and then
from the cover.
Yeah,
from a really great cover, and he's so prominent on it, and he's blowing Wolverine apart.
And then right at the end,
like from the
he only appeared one panel.
Yeah, and that's to me is the exact reason why I was kind of like really like, ugh, really? Because okay, where was Gollum all this time? There was no shadow. He never appeared before. And then you kind of think, okay, so is he going after Arakis because he is kind of in hate with them, or he's going after mutants or in Wolverine? Because that's not. I didn't get that. They get that thing, or it's just like he's just going to be the Loki of mutants now, where he's just going to go out there and just cause havoc, in however way possible. And the thing is, like, how did he know about all of this that was going on? Unless he was already in the island, or he was working with someone. And if he was already in the island, why didn't we see him before? And so that's one of the reasons I was like, oh, come on now. Like, it just felt like it was shock. Rather than something like, ooh.
Yeah, I left this feeling pretty good, and I'm trying to interrogate why. Not that a comment shouldn't make me feel good, but why do I feel good after this one? And I almost always don't. And I think that it's two reasons. One is that I think we all knew that Solem was a good idea to set up as a nemesis for Wolverine. The same old Omega Reds or whatever don't work. We need like an outside force that's not already on Krakoa. And so I kind of like the hint that he's out there moving. Like, I agree, it would have been nice to see his shadow and his fingerprint on some things. And maybe in retrospect, it will turn out that happened. But I think it's a good thing. It's positive for Wolverine to build up new arch enemies that are not just like foes for him to shred through, right? And that are smart. Because smart enemies make Wolverine work harder. But then the other thing is, I kind of like this idea that Wolverine, he's just getting piled under more and more things. And it's a similar way that it feels in X-Force, but X-Force is dealing with like the big macro things, whole countries, whole boats that were swallowed by whole sea monsters. And Wolverine is kind of dealing with these nebulous things that are hard to describe. Is it a macro issue of all the vampires, or is it a problem with vampires in this one place? Is it a macro issue of like, what's the plot with the Shi'ar and the diamonds, or is it just a micro issue of one ship being marauded? And I actually really, really like that for Wolverine. And the idea that almost like a Tetris board that's getting higher and higher and you can't clear them. Like this, every issue should end with Sage giving him a memo, and it should have more stuff. And eventually it should run off the bottom of the page. Like, if that's the direction that Percy wants to go with Wolverine, I actually fully love that, except for how did it take us until issue 14? What the happened in those first 13 issues? There were some vampires and an auction with Maverick. I literally could not recap any more detail than that in terms of the first 13 issues of this title. But you know what? If we take me at my word that I go into every comic saying I want it to be good and I'm cheering for it, this makes me cheer for Wolverine. Do this, but even better next time, Benjamin Percy.
Do we think we need a separate title for this, or can this be taken by X-Force? Like, do one with X-Force, one with and double ship them? I don't know.
If it's going to feel this differentiated, yeah. I think this is the first time for me in a while that it has justified itself being a separate title. I thought you were going to say, do we need a separate Wolverine title? I'm like, yeah, let's have two. Let's have two Wolverine titles. Let's just have two.
No. This is what I want for Wolverine, though. I don't want just Logan Wolverine. I want a Wolverine that is like all four of them. Like Daken.
Summers family.
Yes, exactly. Like four of them, and they're kind of working together. And then, I don't know, I think that there is if this issue had like him and Daken going together and then trying to solve it.
Doesn't it feel like it would have been fun if Daken was
exactly. Laura coming in, or something like that. Like, put this in like New York Harbor and then have Laura come in.
I can't believe I'm saying this, and it's a monkey's paw that's going to curl up and punch me in the face later. But I really feel like there should be a second Wolverine title, and it should be called anything Wolverines or Savage Wolverine or whatever. And it should be edited outside the X office, and it should be all four of the Wolverines that we just talked about, and then other, some other.
Oh, and Jonathan.
And other Claw mutants too. And it should just be about them doing Marvel Universe stuff that's like only a little bit about the X-Men. Let's have, it should be more like an off to the side of the X-Men book than an off to the side of a Wolverine book. Just like, hey, well, the Wolverines are all living together in the treehouse in their downtime. What do they do? Like, I would buy that, and it would probably be good. Like, let's get somebody great to write it, and let's enjoy that comic book, right?
And also, I think for this issue, one of the main complaints of this title is that Wolverine doesn't feel like Wolverine. I think in this particular issue, Wolverine actually feels like Wolverine.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So there's no odd super macho dialogue that seems really out of place. Here he's just him. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to end on a high note. Oh, before any of us thinks of anything negative to say, that's where we're going to end our discussion of Wolverine number 14. We've talked about every X-Men comic book since the beginning of X of Swords, even when sometimes we are not that interested in them, both before reading them and after reading them. And why do we do that for you?
X-Men is better when it's red.
That's right. And Wolverines are better when they're together too, Marvel. Let us have the thing we're asking for. Put all the Wolverines in one title so we can enjoy Lara and Logan both being Wolverine. That's our demand. But until we get to talk to you again, on behalf of Freya, Tyler, and myself, we want to say thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. And until we get to talk to you again, we hope very much that you are well.
Bye.
Bye.